Good morning, everyone. On behalf of BW Sustainability World and BW Business World, I extend a very warm welcome to all our speakers, industry leaders, sustainability professionals, policymakers, and the participants joining us today for our World Environment Day special webinar, Sustainability in Action. World Environment Day serves as an important reminder that sustainability is no longer a conversation for the future. It's a business imperative for today. Over the past 5 years, BW Sustainability World has convened hundreds of leaders, policymakers, sustainability practitioners, and industry stakeholders through conclaves, roundtables, webinars, reports, and community initiatives around World Environment Day and beyond. What has been particularly interesting is how these conversation itself has evolved. A few years ago, the focus was largely on awareness, understanding the urgency of environmental challenges. This gradually moved towards ambition, commitments, and net zero aspirations. And today, the conversation is increasingly centered on execution, accountability, measurable outcomes, and real world impact. It is a shift from intent to implementation that makes this year's conversation particularly relevant. At the same time as organizations strengthen their sustainability efforts, countries and businesses alike continue to grapple with a broader challenge. How do we pursue economic growth and development while ensuring environmental responsibility remains at the core of our decisions? These are some of the questions we hope to explore through today's discussion. Before we begin, I would also like to thank all our speakers for taking the time to join us and contribute to these important conversations. Let us now move on to our first session, Sustainability in Action, Turning Climate into Measurable Impact. It is my pleasure to welcome our moderator for this session, Ms. Noor Fatima Warsia, Group Editorial Director, BW Business World. Joining her on the panel are Mr. Lavish Ahuja, Chief Sustainability Officer, Dalmia Bharat, Mr. Sandeep Chandna, Chief Sustainability Officer, Tech Mahindra, Mr. Vinay Yeleti, Head of Sustainability, Godrej Industries Group, Dr. Aditi Haldar, Director, Global Reporting Initiative, South Asia Network. Thank you all for joining us. Over to you, Noor.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Priyanshi. I think our panelists are also already here with us. I can see they're already here. They're switching on their cameras. Welcome to everybody. I think Priyanshi captured it quite well when she was like, we have been doing this for now 5 years. The BW Business World Environment Day special has seen all different kinds of my apologies, all different kind of conversations over the year. But this year we are focusing on sustainability in action, which I am sure that these set of panelists must be tired of hearing from business world itself, if not from business world, at least from other people. Because this year there has been a very focused attention towards execution. We have talked about awareness, we've talked about aspiration, we have talked about targets, but this year's about let's see how to get it done, whether it was a budget or anything else. That's where we were at. This session today is all about turning climate intent into measurable impact. So over the next 45 minutes, 50 minutes, maybe an hour, you're going to hear us talk about sustainability beyond reporting, strategy to everyday practice, etc., etc. All of this I am absolutely a zero expert on, but I'm blessed because we have a strong panel with us today. They represent industry, technology, diversified businesses, and global reporting standards. So now we are going to speak with them. We are going to take their view and their understanding of how organizations are moving from intent to implementation, what gaps still remain, and what practical actions can create measurable environmental impact over the next year. I'm going to begin with the opening round so that we can pull these lady and gentlemen in the conversation already. The first one goes to everybody, which is on sustainability beyond reporting. Now, just in case if you feel that it's pretty much what we're looking at, we'll see how we go about it. But on this specific context, many organizations have ESG commitments, they have sustainability targets, but implementation often remains fragmented. Let's look at what are some of the biggest gaps between sustainability intent and actual execution within businesses today. Now, most of you actually have very strong proven record that your company has taken action which has given outcomes. So you can tell us from your experiences on where you are still finding the gaps. or where did you identify the gaps and you started solving them? Something that's more concrete and more into today's time so that our readers and our listeners have something to take away. Who do we start with? Sandeep, shall we pull you in first? Mr. Channa is
Yeah,
a
yeah.
favorite of business world. If people didn't know that, they constantly rank among our IMSC in the high numbers. So Sandeep, let's start with you and then we pull in the rest.
Thanks, Noor, and thanks, panel, for being there. I think so, Lavesh and Aditi all have been very close partners around. So, Noor, one is definitely about BW. I think so. I owe a lot of my success because every year when the rankings come, I really look at what are the things that need to change. So where are
Hmm.
the gaps which have been identified? So, BW ranking definitely becomes one of a motivator or kind of how do we really look forward the next year? Means every year it is like, what is the change that is going to change in terms of our rankings and other things. So thanks for that. And, a very pertinent question. So, Noor, I was in COP last year, and I think so the discussions were again around if we have spoken enough, how is it that we would now move towards action? And same what we are hearing here today. See, there are four or five things which are really gonna matter. Means I started my journey about 19 years back, so I've learned it over a period of time that where were the gaps every year. We used to think that okay, these are the things which are working fine. Then we realize no, there is something much better to be done. So first thing I think so what we really realized was, which I think so everybody would also agree with me, is the fragmented ownership and the way of working it happens within the organization. Means if you really
Hmm.
look at from a budget perspective, you will go to a CFO of an organization. Okay, so this is one part of it. Second part is if you have to collect the data, you have to make some modifications, you will go to the facilities department or you would go to the corporate services department in various organizations, how it is named. Um, then if it is HR, you're looking at social angle, you will go to the 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 HR part of it, saying that these are the changes. And then last not the least, then you'll go to company secretary asking for the changes in the governance process or the improvements to be made there. So there is a fragmentation of ownership. Now, how do you really, I mean, it's the biggest challenge for a chief sustainability officer to kind of work along with all of them and convince them that this is the way it has to be done. Because how do you see these things coming into the picture to be explained that it makes sense? It is a best practice. So all those things do take some time in bringing those fragmented ownerships into one place. Now here, the best practice which I did was, this is again for everyone's, very
Hmm.
early in the game itself, I made a sustainability council. Now, what this council was, taking the onus of all this head into the council. So then
Hmm.
what it became was that means today in sustainability council, I have the CFO, I have the legal person, I have the corporate services head, I mean the facilities head, then I have the HR head. So all these people become part of my council. So decision making becomes very simple once you have all of them aligned into one picture. So this was one area which I think was important. I have others, but I think so. I would definitely want to touch upon the data part of it. In a lot of my forums at BW also I mentioned this, that how the data plays an important role. Means until you measure it right, you can't take a decision based on what you're doing. Uh, Now, where we started facing challenge right in the beginning was that, say, 1-0 by mistake somebody has put it wrongly, or in today's world when we are doing the AI based data interpretation, how the AI is reading the data or what training models are being used. So data becomes one of the very important aspects, and then looking into how the scope 3, which is again a very it's a very tedious task to go through all those 15 categories and look at how and which has to be interpreted at one way. I mean, just to give an example, say if it is an employee commute, how would you kind of um, take the best practice into the picture and then report on it? Means today,
Hmm.
I may be coming to office on a car, and then tomorrow I may be using a bicycle to come to the office. Or that means I prefer these days in Pune that you have a metro and you take metros to the to the office. So how do you collate that data into right matrices and say that because of employee commute, these are the right emissions? So the best practices have to be really looked at, and then post that you take a target on it. And the last not the least, I would request, if people are hearing us onto this panel, and the larger audience, is that get your targets validated by SPTI. That is the one of the best to see that how you are really looking at the numbers as such. So these were the two, I think, so quick areas where I thought, there is a gap and we could help the companies go through it. Thanks, Noor.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, thank you so much, Sandeep. As usual, there's something for everybody in what you share with us. Another favorite of ours, Mr. Lavish Ahuja. Lavish has authored some very strong notes for Business World in the past. Lavish, your voice. Also, anything extra that you want to add to what Sandeep has already said?
First of all, let me thank Business World, BW Business, for organizing this panel and at the apt date, 5th of June, World Environment Day. So nothing can be better than that. And thank you to you also, Noor, for hosting this session. Now, from an operational angle, I believe Sandeep has by and large covered everything, so nothing much to add. But maybe one point which I believe is very important to add is the linkages between the target set by the organization and the last mile person in the organization, the one who is at the shop floor or the person who is at the ground selling your product or services. Now, if they do not understand what these targets actually mean and how does it affect their life or how they can contribute toward this target, this will always stay an isolated exercise. And if that is taken care of, I think rest all I believe is more of an administrative quick fixing here and then you can always manage. So I think organization should really work on that. I see it has become a fashion now to take commitments on net zero. Good. I mean, I believe that should actually translate into action. But does the shop floor person know what does net zero mean? What does his day-to-day activity contribute to that? So I think we should take that also into account. And it's not that it's just the role of the top management. I think it's a bilateral communication wherein all the intermediaries need to be aligned. And then I think I don't see any challenge in converting this reporting or the associated nuances with it. I think that's my take, and I would leave now others to put the points there. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Do we have something more that Vinay or Aditi you wanted to add over here? Again, Vinay's company is again one of our favorites, super IMSC company.
Thank you.
Vinay, you wanted to add something? Go ahead.
Yeah, so firstly, thank you for having me here. This is my ideally maiden participation in even BW. So that keeps it exciting and a pleasure to be here. So I think Sandeep and Lovish both have covered two important aspects. One is the fundamental thing that is on most common data quality, which is a systemic gap that continues to exist. Second is the accountability architecture, which again, there is a gap between the bridge between the corporate function and the BU for execution, I think, which Lovish has already covered it in a very apt manner. The third aspect also is on the time horizons. So yet in corporates, we ideally look for quarterly reporting cycle or quarterly review cycle. And what happens is by virtue of a quarterly cycle, the short-term wins or the easy wins are something that has been prioritized. And even sustainability also is reviewed at a corporate lens, at a quarterly lens. I think one thing which we should also be very clear is that there are certain key strategic interventions of sustainability or ESG, which ideally would require a little larger time horizon. When you talk about alternate material, when you talk about building ecosystems, these are something which cannot be ideally covered in a quarter or maybe in a very short payback cycle. So leaders of the business or the BU units also should have a thought in place that sustainability ideally at places we also need a little longer time horizon to give you that payback or give you that value that you're looking for. So that is also a gap which persists from intent to action. Yeah.
And it persists across companies actually at the moment, because now people are trying to say that, okay, now show us what's happening.
Yes.
So far, everybody was investing, but now it is like, let's go at what's actually the outcome. Dr. Haldar here, obviously, she is the person who will tell us about sustainability beyond reporting and numbers and what actually makes it credible. Dr. Haldar, would you like to share some of your maybe experience or something on this particular point, or we directly let's get into what's making this all credible?
Yeah, so thank you, thank you, Noor, for this excellent set of speakers that we have today, and then including you, and then Business World taking a leadership role to bring every one of us together. So thanks for that. And it's a great moment. So today, when I was taking a walk in the Biodiversity Park, which is being sponsored by one of the large corporates here in Gurgaon, it's actually a mining area which has been, devastated for many years and now completely reclaimed. And then I was thinking, so many places, there are so many media reports about, trees being cut and industries being built. And then I see a large number of school children coming with teachers to celebrate Environment Day and looking at trees and insects and flowers. It gave me a lot of hope. So I thought I'll just start the day with that, sharing with you that it is actually, this is going to be the balance that is going to be needed every time that we cross this kind of evolution of development versus human desire, and to really look at what is right or wrong. One point that I see over the years which has come, and because I work for GRI and have been associated with GRI for like almost 29 years and working in sustainability space about 40 years now, so I feel that one thing which is a gap is, what Lavish mentioned about the other extreme, about targets being set at the central level, and then what happens at the shop floor. It is really the reality, and that is where I think the measurements also get affected and the data then gets affected, what Sandeep was mentioning, right? So someone is planning and someone is executing. Where is the knowledge which needs to be built in that shop floor to be able to understand why that data is required and how that data can really change the way the business has to be actually carried on a daily basis? I think this gap is very, very prominent, and capacity building is very much required. The other end of the gap that I have seen over the years, especially reading sustainability reports based on GRI, so the GRI standards say that the company has to disclose about its strategy, risks, and opportunities, and then the several matrices of 32 topics and the results. I see a big gap in the way that the strategy portion of the report is written and the results come. So how that does that happen? Strategy should be linked to the results because that's the overall strategy of the organization. So there has to be this big results coming out of the strategy. What I see is there are many initiatives in small ad hoc manner which are getting reported, but they are not part of the bigger strategy and the risk or the opportunities of the organization. So I think this gap of the overall versus the small is what is needed at this moment of time. But I'm really very, very grateful that for these last so many years, I see a big transformation in the corporate world of India, where we started. And I used to be often asked about, why this reporting, why sustainability, they are all foreign. You don't have to do all this. So we have come a long way. And I think there's leadership from every stakeholders, including regulators, the policymakers, and businesses themselves. So thank you for this question.
Excellent, excellent. We will discuss a little bit more about making the whole thing more credible. We will get into it. We'll get everybody's points into it. Because it is Environment Day, I do want to get one thing off the table, which is everyday or small actions, behavioral or operational changes that can deliver measurable environmental impact within organizations. Now, Sandeep, he kind of mentioned about it, like commute, for example, and we are seeing many companies carpooling, et cetera, doing some small things. But in your experiences, and you run large businesses, in your experiences, what are probably some practical operational behavioral changes that you have seen actually deliver impact? And you can answer between energy, waste, procurement, mobility, anything. Who do we go for? Lavish, let's go to you for this one first, from a practical solution standpoint.
Is it because I represent hard to abate sector? Is that the reason?
No.
Okay. No, that was just on a lighter note. In fact, we don't subscribe to that term hard to abate. In fact, at Dalmia, we call ourselves as possible to abate sector. Sometimes,
All right.
look at a problem also helps you in solving the problem. So just on a sideline. If I have to give this response from the hard to abate sector, just for the sake, if I continue with that term, we have already identified some of the key levers which are in alignment with our overall targets, which we have kept for ourselves. As some of you would know that Dalmia has kept an aspirational target of carbon negativity by 2040. Now, this might look weird to some people that cement sector and carbon negativity, how do they both gel with each other? Well, there is a possibility, and that's why we call it possible to abate sector. But it is dependent on a lot of policy support which is required. I will not diverge there. But what we have done is basically in arriving at this formidable target, we have taken the entire, I would say, lower, middle, and upper management in alignment with it. So that first of all, they understand that what does carbon negativity means for them, and then clearly identify those levers which will actually contribute towards that journey of carbon negativity. So there are some direct levers, because energy is something which is one of the factor as far as the cement industry is considered, purely from the cost point of view also, and also incidentally in terms of the GHG or the carbon dioxide emissions which we do. So, in cement sector perspective, almost 60% of the emission comes from the process emission. So even if I'm running with 100% RE and I'm using all possible green material available, including alternative fuel material, still 55 to 60% material will generate as an outcome of cement chemistry. So I have to bear with that brunt and continuously look for the solution which will deal with that while other easy things are happening. So we have actually documented KPIs at the each level, both from the cost point of view and also in terms of how it delivers the overall objective. An important thing which really worked for us in terms of instilling the discipline around it, that we have tried to convert all these levers in the form of ROI from the organization point of view. How does it contribute to the bottom line? Because this is a currency which everybody understands. You don't have to convince them. You don't have to tell them that you have to do it because it looks good, it improves your rating, it gives you higher DGSI score. So we arrived at this common currency of how it contributes to the bottom line, and then everybody falls in line. And then you have to justify if you're not contributing as promised. So this is going to be my take here.
Makes sense. Excellent. Vinay, I'll pull you in again, not because of the hard to abate part, not really. But then, you also are between manufacturing and diversified. I'm sure you also face a lot of such issues. Anything to understand
Right.
practical
Yeah.
decarbonization levers that you're working on?
No, so practically, I would rather split this question into two parts. One is on your operational and behavioral change. Second is on the measurable impacts. So at Godrej or otherwise, like again, our thought is sustainability should ideally be positioned more as an extension to the existing that is there. When I say extension, it is an extension to a manufacturing excellence, extension to a product innovation, or extension to a central business strategy that is there. We don't want sustainability to a new overlay in itself, because see, the problems we are trying to address, be it your alternate material, be it alternate feedstock, or be it about, as Lovish told, renewable opportunities, all of these are persisting problem statements which are there even before sustainability has come into the core limelight. So sustainability adds a new dimension or maybe a new language to it, but again, it is more of an extension to the existing functions that are there. Now, when you talk about measurable impacts, see, again, these measurable interventions of measurable impacts ideally come from not so glamorous areas. Again, from a shop floor or from an operational landscape where you're looking at alternate energy, or where you're looking at maybe rewriting the procurement policies in a way that ESG is integrated into the supply chain practices, etc. So ideally, the action lies in the operational items, and then the rest story flows in. So for me, the positioning of sustainability is much more critical, either you are in a conglomerate or in a business like hard to abate or in a technology. So positioning of sustainability is something which would drive your intent to action.
Excellent. Love it. Sandeep, I'm going to broaden the question right now and I'm taking it to you. I'm not making it tough for you, but it's just that from your perspective, I'm trying to understand how can organizations make sustainability commercially viable, scalable? Now, we have heard everybody talk about, and I think Vinay really hit the nail when he's like, it shouldn't be an added layer, and we have talked about earlier the difference of actually putting it or the bottom line conversation. And you have been able to do this with some success. So can you just give us some point on how you see organizations beyond yourself, like at a larger scale, on how do you get sustainability integrated into core business strategy instead of treating it as a parallel initiative?
Thanks, Noor. Again, a very pertinent question. See, I'll put it in a very simple way. Now, until somebody sees a value add coming from an initiative, that initiative will otherwise die down or it will have some challenges to cover it. Now, if a CFO of an organization looks at it that any initiative which is going to make some impact to the bottom line as well, so he would immediately kind of, come back to it saying that, why this can't be done. I'll give you a very simple example. Today, renewable energy is coming at a cheaper cost, means whether it is 50 paisa or whether it is, whatever unit per price that we really look at, but it is coming at a cheaper price. Now, why would I not make a business case and move forward to it saying that, yes, means if I'm moving from a grid to a green energy, this is what it makes into the bottom line as well. That immediately brings an angle saying that, yes, means sustainable. And then also is that it is adding the business value to it. Now, this is helping the company in terms of a brand. This is helping the company in terms of opportunities. Now, today we are also selling ESG offerings to our customers. So that means we have built up and looking at it as an opportunity to see that how would we also inculcate, because 19 years of experience has been a pretty long for us to really put these best practices into the place. And that is what we are now taking it to our customers. Now, this was very simple part saying that whatever you have learned, can you put it as a best practice and move it in the bringing that efficiencies into the picture. Now, resource efficiency itself. Now, if you are looking at the product which are kind of more sustainable and they're cost effective, how those products will make into the limelight at some point of time. So those itself become another important aspect of moving the whole things from a strategy to the core business that you're doing. So that means you imbibe the sustainability not as a separate vertical, but it is imbibed into your strategy itself as you really look at it. The business decisions means today if we have put a carbon price, so by default, every decision making is becoming an important part of how we are moving or how we are taking the commercial decisions also because of the carbon pricing mechanism that we have put. Now, in resource optimization, when I'm saying is now we have put up tools. We have put up tools like Green Code Refiner, where we are also looking at if as an IT company, if we can help our customers to also look at how the coding could help in terms of reduction of the carbon footprints in the codes itself. So a lot of those opportunities have arrived because of imbibing sustainability into your core strategy. And that is what is making the lot of difference as we see.
But you know, Sandeep, this is really honestly easier said than done. Now, some of your companies obviously have taken this seriously for a long period of time, and you had the buy-in of your leadership right at the start, beyond just greenwashing. The leaders genuinely wanted to make this as a game plan within their overall strategy and business outlook for the years ahead. But that's not true for a larger mass, and that is why right now we are seeing this becoming a question mark on whether sustainability is able to fund itself, whether it's able to carry its own weight. Now, within 2026, 2027, do you see some changes in that from a company industry wide, the way things are working? Or do you think right now we're still at a place where there will be some that are doing it right, they're seeing the benefits, but the larger mass that should contribute to the eventual goals is still a bit of a question mark? After Sandeep takes it, I would request the rest also to just give your perspective on this, because this remains a gap as far as people such as us who are chronicling the space is concerned. This remains a gap. We speak to all of you and we see that what a great way forward and this is the way to be, etc., etc. And then you go back to the floor and you see that no, not really. A lot of people are still challenging, they're finding it challenging to make it work, even if the government has made it enforced reporting and compliance, etc., etc. It's only that much, just the tick mark is happening. Sandeep, you want to answer because I picked it up from you, and then we go forward.
So, Noor, I won't say that it is moving at a pace, but I would also not say that it is not moving. So, lot of things in other companies as well, or if what I heard at COP also, you would see a lot of transition happening in quite a few companies, and uh, everybody has started seeing it as an opportunity. Is whether some companies have started building up products which are more sustainable and branding them in such a way that yes means their customers also look at it from a perspective that it helps them meet their goals and targets as well. So that kind of a movement has started happening. Now, if you really start looking at the LCA part of life cycle assessment, how it is becoming mandated and how the things are now being looked at, that every product or every kind of a, even you look at even a nail, from where the product is come, where the raw material is coming from, and how are the nuts being really looked at. So all those aspects are playing a very major role when you see a product of in a standalone way. So things are moving. People have started seeing that it is impacting. As I give an example of renewable energy itself, even in means if I'm using a vermicompost in my campus. So today we are not spending anything on the water which is coming out from the campuses. So that water is getting reused in the campus itself. So all those initiatives are kind of seeing those aspects itself. And in the last question, we were also saying is that how the behavior of the people are changing. Now, if you really look at something on, I'll just give an example of Tech Mahindra. We have started a group called Green Marshals, and this has been there for a pretty long time. These people kind of educate every employee because we have about 150,000 plus employees. So educating them becomes one of the greatest achievements for us, saying that every employee, whatever is being learned in the office, they also replicate the same when they do it at their home and other places itself. So that also is making a lot of change. These green marshals come back to my table and say that, Sandeep, why don't we do this? Sandeep, why don't we do this? So that is also creating a lot of impact how the organizations are today looking at.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much, Sandeep. Vinay, Lavish, do you want to just get into over there? Give us an industry-wide take of how you are seeing things.
Yeah. If I may start.
Yes.
If I speak more particularly from the cement sector, I would say things are going absolutely in the right direction. There are several factors which has contributed to this. One, of course, it's a highly competitive sector, plus consolidation is happening. So the price is not in your control, the cost is in your control, right? So you have to make sure that the every penny contributes to the bottom line and keep you competitive. And that's where the bigger problem also becomes the bigger solution for us. So on one side, decarbonization is the biggest challenge for the sector, but at the same time, it has a direct interlinkages with the consumption of energy and the resources. So it is at a perfect position for us. And the sector is extremely focused on this element. Even in a situation where there is not even a single dollar or single rupee premium on the green cement. Let's understand the dilemma we are in. Do we actually, when we go and buy a cement bag, do we actually check the carbon footprint of it? I don't think so. Yet there is an expectation from the sector to decarbonize. So where does that cost gets absorbed? So it is the efficiency of the sector which for now is taking care of all the efforts we are doing. So that way, I'm pretty happy for the sector's performance. Not want to become that complacent about the reality, but if this is how it's going to be looked from the business point of view, I think the sector is doing pretty well, and I can say that sustainability is getting entrenched as a core to business and not something which is on the top or icing or something like that. But that my comment should be only seen in the context of cement. I don't know whether it's really applicable for other sectors.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah,
And
I
Vinay,
think
go ahead. You want to add to that? Otherwise, we'll go to Aditi. All
yeah,
these scouts, sustainability scouts, when we're done, then we will go to the
correct.
teacher.
A few aspects from my side. So I'll break it into two parts. One is on whether sustainability is shifting or moving. Second is on how to make it scalable and business relevant. So if you
Hmm.
ask me like whether sustainability is moving, if you look around, yeah, sustainability is moving and moving in a right direction, as Lovish told or Sandeep has pointed it out. Now I think
Yeah.
sustainability has moved more from the CSO's desk or the agenda of CSO and sustainability officer to a CFO's spreadsheets or the supply chain officer's annual operating plans. And when ideally sustainability gets featured or now is being featured in capital allocations or your annual operating plans, that is when you can realize also that there is some movement that is happening, and it is not more of a maybe a ESG performance tracking, but ideally organizations are practicing in it in itself. So the shift is there, and shift is not an ambition because ambition already exists. The shift is more on the ownership which we can see, and yeah, there still are opportunity areas which can be improved and worked upon. But if you're asking about what needs to be done to keep sustainability scalable and business relevant, to me, I think there are 3 points that would come. One is one which Sandeep has already covered, which is to protect your P&L. If whatever sustainability you're doing, if it can have a P&L impact through whatever initiatives you talk about, responsible material, resource efficiency, renewable energy, whatever it is, if you're ideally able to protect your P&L, that is a tick for me. Second, if you're able to open a new market positioning for the organization where your competitors are finding it difficult to enter through their existing credentials, be it your access to capital, be it access to maybe a newer material, whatever it is. That is some opportunity. If you can open it through sustainability, that can be one differentiating and you'll be business relevant. The third and most critical is ideally future proofing your business in the current uncertain and very rapidly evolving landscape that we have in the external world. If you can ideally future proof, if sustainability can ideally contribute in future proofing the business, that is would be a great value addition for business, not just to survive today's but also thrive in the coming years as well. But again, there is a failure mode or a catch to it. Companies do operate these three metrics in a sequential order, but if you ask me, it should be done in a parallel manner. You protect your P&L along with de-risking your business or along with looking into new opportunities. If that can be done in a parallel way, that is where I guess sustainability will be more scalable and would stay more business relevant and not just in a siloed way with the head of sustainability.
Excellent, excellent. Aditi, these gentlemen are completely, they are like everything is in the right direction, and then they are nicely caveating that, while there is room for change. So you, the scoreboard keeper of sorts, Aditi, how are you looking at it from an overall industry perspective, sectoral perspective?
Okay, so overall, I think it has really progressed and it is progressing. Yeah, so that's my first point. However, I would like to bring up two things. One is the large leadership organizations, which those who are like contributing to a major percentage of the economic growth or GDP of our country. Okay, those companies, I would say that there is something called the consent to operate. Of course, they have to meet all the regulations and all of that. And there is something which is very, very important. I've been hearing all of them. And that is very true that when ROI is not met, the bottom line, the financial bottom line, nothing will move because you cannot sustain an initiative unless money is there, right? So we have to look at it. And there's the way that can be done is to look at the low hanging fruits like saving energy, saving resources, materials, look at where water and air will come and where the land will be available or not. So here I think Vinay, you mentioned about future proofing. Can sustainability really help business future proof? I have a different context and perspective to it. I think the future proofing has to be done based on the future proofing of resource availability. If air, water, land, biodiversity is not going to be available, minerals are not going to be available, energy not going to be available, future proofing cannot happen just by saying we have a sustainability report. So that's the fact, and we have to address that. So that is the starting point of sustainability, to really take care of our natural resources and endowments and take care of the human capital, which is actually not measured anytime, right? So it's the natural capital and the social capital that will lead to the growth of the financial capital. That's my second point. And the third point is, if I look at the small scale or the family run businesses or companies who are not listed. For example, we have our regulator who has, notified that the top 1,000 companies, listed companies, should have sustainability reports. But I see a lot of family-run businesses are now being proactive. They don't want to wait for the listing to happen, but they want to do things. And why? There are two reasons for it. One is actually being part of the global supply chain that is ruling everything. Second is the investor group that is saying that if you do not have actions in place, if you do not have communication in place on what you are doing on sustainability, we are going to miss out on the investment that can come here. Yeah. So procurement, being part of the supply chain, buyers intent, and investor, I think these are pushing small companies and family run businesses. Like we are working in Bangladesh, Sri Lanka a lot, and sectors which are in India which are not listed, they are actually showing a great moment. However, there are gaps, and we have to tighten the accountability on both sides, from the regulators who have to take care of the environmental implications, and from the businesses who do not want to be accountable to anything. So what can we do? They will be always left behind, right? So I think the market will rule their business growth, or the society will rule their business growth. We can't help it. Those who are fence sitters, those who are not actually taking a proactive leading role, I think the fence sitters have to do a lot of work. And that is the role of all these leadership organizations that we have here today with us, like Godrej, Mahindra, Dalmia. They are the ones who can actually set examples for others to emulate. And that is where I think GRI kind of organization, we feel our work will never end, because we are here to bring all these stakeholders, all these leaders, and all the fence sitters to come together and not only just listen to the regulatory requirements, but also look at their social license to operate. So I actually advise a lot of companies to say that, what is your social license to operate? Are you just waiting for the legal license to operate, or are you going to look at your trust building ability, your reputation, or the regret that you may have after 10 or 20 years of running the business, that okay, I should have done run the business in a little bit different manner. So that is where I think it makes a lot of difference, Noor, that what is the vision of the organization? Maybe I'm a small home run business, but do I really have a vision to have a business which will grow and cater to the different needs of the society and the growing generation that is demanding for environmental and social responsibilities? Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. I love the answer. Love all of your answers actually. You just make it sound like we are on the right track for all of our targets. And hum sab bahut achhe bacche hain, which is always nice to hear, especially from leaders coming from for organizations at large. My team is reminding me that we have like the last 7 minutes right now, so I need to pace up. I want to understand trade-offs now. So we have discussed the intention is there, a lot of action is there, direction is in the right side, everything is fine. Trade-offs. When sustainability meets these real life problems, whether it is business goals or cost, growth, speed, any other operational reality, what are some other tougher trade-offs that you people have faced and had to give in? ऐसा हुआ है कभी? Sandeep, I'm going after you again.
Yeah, see, no, there are some decisions which you have to kind of, means everything is not hunky-dory. So you always
Yeah.
have to kind of start either compromising or see whatever the best alternatives available. But then you always find that there is a solution which is available. Now, I'll just give you an example, say for renewable energy. Sometimes, because of XYZ reasons, you don't have, means the policies are as they're still kind of falling in place. So you look at other options, means can you buy renewable energy from exchange itself, or can you look at other parts of means getting this renewable energy from some other agency until you sign your own PPAs and all those kind of things. So you always have to kind of find an alternative way to do it. Means say even for how do you bring your employee force into the whole arrangement of it. How they understand that how sustainability is being moved. So you do various kind of webinars, you do various kind of um, you know some kind of you give them awards and all those kinds. So you have to move forward without looking into that this thing is not possible, or how would we make it happen. So the thing is that you move forward, find an alternative, look at the best practice, take help from the people who have done it well. That is how you start moving forward onto it.
I also want to work for Tech Mahindra. My boss is not watching. But it's sometimes these trade-offs are really real, right? You have to kind of, what you have to do, but you have to give in. Vinay, Lavish, do you have examples? Vinay, we go with you with this one first. Lavish, I'm sure will have examples with
Yeah.
his hard to abate sector.
Yeah.
But Vinay, any examples where you had to give in?
We'll have to give in, I think, again, from a interventions from a renewable energy standpoint. Now, whenever you ideally go for a renewable energy standpoint discussion, you need manufacturing excellence or even the operational guys in it. And it is always hard to convince saying that how a briquette and versus a coal, what is the calorific value that a coal gives would always be a higher when it comes to briquette. But it's again a persuasion that you will have to do and you'll have to deal with and make them understand and convince and put in a business case as well, that how going for a briquette will ideally be a much P&L protection as well, and would also be a great part in your conversation to sustainability as well. And again, one thing that all of us also have to understand is not every solution you would find within your organization in itself. That is where I think there comes the partnerships or the ecosystem that you would look to form, and that is where you would find a larger solutions as well. I think all the matured organizations, to a great extent, whatever has to be achieved in the sustainability front at an operational level has been achieved, or they have a clear path to do it. But where it ideally trickles down is now how do you scale it up further? That is where I think that ecosystem or the partnership and the collaboration that is required within your competitors and across the industries as well.
Love it. Thank you, Vinay. Lavish.
Yes, I do have lots of examples, but just for a better appreciation of this discussion, see, for us, it's all about allocation of capital. Okay, look at from the business point of view. Sustainability comes with ROI, and sometimes these ROIs are not as good as we would have expected. But look at from a management perspective, CFO's perspective. If he has a pot of money, then he would rather allocate where the ROI is much better. So I don't see this as a matter of disappointment. Rather, I see that what further innovation we can do to see if we can come close to the ROI of what the other alternatives are. Sometimes it's a bit easy, but sometimes it's not. But then this is where we keep going back to the drawing board, re-looking at the vendor, re-looking at the supplier. And this is something which I interfaced last week itself, whereby we were looking for a project where half of it was having a half portion of it was having a good ROI, and the other part of it was not very good. And in total, my ROI was much more than or much less than what I would have actually got in comparison with the conventional one. So then I was asked, okay, go back, find out an alternative vendor. It might take some time, but then maybe someday we will come up with something what is required. But the overall point is that when we as a sustainability people start think in the way management look at the problem, then I would say the chances of getting success increases. Because if we continue to talk in a language which only limited sustainability people understand, I can tell you will be isolated. Even if your ROI is good, you will not get the money. Okay, so we have to start talking in the language which is understood by the people, because that's how sustainability gets integrated within the day-to-day operation of the business. And you come out of this shell of an isolated department who is only doing disclosure. You break that shell, become integrated, think like them, and then like a conventional business, sometimes you get accepted, sometimes you don't get accepted, so you redo your work. I think that's the whole business operation part of it.
Excellent, excellent. So we are at the last 1 minute of the conversation. Now, over the last almost 50 minutes, we have gone through everything. I think Sandeep really set the context when he said that the fragmented ownership, measuring data, how to get all of that together really was a genuine gap or problem areas that we had to look at. The linkage from top to bottom, Lavish mentioned it, we revisited it a couple of other times, getting the entire organization to move in that one direction is a challenge, but organizations such as yourself are already looking at working on it. And of course, the how do you get that money? Now, Vinay, of course, answers my questions brilliantly because he already divides it, and he's like, you journalist question, let me simplify it for everyone. But excellent takeaways from Vinay as well on how future proofing of the business, etc., had come into place. So we have discussed everything from the challenge. Of course, we had Aditi, who has kind of put the real world scenario. The social capital plus human capital is equivalent to how do you future proof resource, future proof resource is the area that we have to focus on, or that can make all of this outcome or measurability more meaningful or accountability more meaningful. My takeaway is that all of you are very positive on what we are doing. You continue to be pushing forward in the right direction. You have idea of the gaps and you are trying to fill that up. So it's better for everybody. On this Environment Day, any final words of advice that you have for fellow CSOs, aspiring CSOs, now that it's a real designation for some time? Who do we go with? Aditi, let's start with you on this one.
Sorry. Yeah. So my one word would be, I think, accountability. Accountability to myself and accountability to others. I think that will change everything for me.
Love it. Vinay, you go for it.
Yeah, I think I'll echo what Dr. Aditi has told. I think accountability is the key, and maybe little one step ahead, one hard sustainability metric to be tied to the BU heads in their performance reviews. When I say hard metric, it should not be a soft metric like an ESG score, but something which is weighted, which has a consequential KPI, if that can be tagged. Because see, all of us know what gets measured, get managed. Similarly, what gets rewarded gets priority. So if that is something that can be fed into the overall performance management, that easy sail through for sustainability.
Lavish?
ROI.
Excellent. ये हमारी पूरी discussion ROI के मुद्दे को हमने अच्छे से पकड़ा है आज. Sandeep?
For me, it is more to look at, how do you kind of change? So, the changes, or how do you transition? So if you are able to do that transition in a smooth manner, the rest, everything will fall in place. It's whether you're looking at, say, employees' behavior, or whether you're looking at corporate behaviors. How do you really look at the board governing you? So if you are able to transition that well with the right business cases, the things will really start falling in place. So transition is the one word which I would really go for.
Awesome. Awesome. See, that is why we started with Aditi, we ended with Sandeep. I am clever, actually. But I'll just add, I will borrow their words and I will add within your company's position sustainability well. I think that came from when I position it well, find the value add. I think Lavish was trying to say, find that value add. Even if you have to innovate, find that value add where you will get it from. Transition is something that Sandeep has touched on. He is a big believer that it's already happening. All are very happy with the sector's performance. P&L, de-risking it, and finding new opportunities. I loved Vinay's answer on that. Some of these things you take back and you are actually making a case for sustainability without just the external push within your company. And hopefully next Environment Day, I will not be questioning more of the sector is not doing enough, and agreeing with all of you wholeheartedly that we are doing and we'll continue to do. Thank you so much, panelists, for your time. Loved the conversation. Priyanshi is here. Thank you, Priyanshi.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Noor, and all our speakers for taking our time for this today. So the conversation reinforced an important reality that sustainability is no longer a parallel function within the organizations, but it is embedded into business strategy, operations, culture, and decision making. Now, before we move on to our second session, we would like to take a moment to spotlight a special World Environment Day initiative by BW Sustainability World, BW Voices for Earth. As a part of this initiative, we invited business leaders and sustainability professionals from across industries to share one sustainability practice they personally follow, one environmental challenge India must urgently address, and one commitment for a more sustainable future. While the perspectives may differ, a common thread emerges. Meaningful change often begins with small, consistent actions and collective responsibility. We are pleased to share a few of these leadership messages with you. Let's look at the video, please.
The country's #1 environmental problem is waste. For instance, Mumbai itself generates about 6,500 metric tons of waste each day. As companies responsible to drive sustainability, we have to form ecosystem partnership that can recycle this waste. Personally, I do not dispose any electronic goods recklessly. I always give it to a recycler or hand it over to that unit in Siemens that does safe recycling.
On World Environment Day, I remind myself that sustainability begins with everyday choices. For me, it's about being mindful about what you consume, how you manage your waste, how you manage your energy, and how you manage your day-to-day requirement to bring a livelihood. And India today faces a critical challenge of growing rapidly, and at the same time, how do you manage to reduce our emissions, to manage the impacts of climate change, and how do we remain resilient and grow in an equitable manner. In that regard, my commitment is ensure that sustainability is not a parallel agenda, but it is in the core of every business strategy that we are in, where we are all to solve the problem of the society. We should not create new problem. So ultimately, sustainability is about the future that we choose to create. So let us all come together and create a beautiful society, world where we all want to live, thrive, and prosper. All the best. Thank you.
A couple of personal habits that I usually try to follow. One, when traveling, I carry my own water flask and avoid buying bottled water. Two, in cities that have good metro connectivity, I usually take the metro to go from place to place. Of the several environmental challenges India faces, I would think accelerated heat stress combined with air pollution in our cities is particularly severe, affecting the most vulnerable workers who have no choice but to be out there in the open working for their living. The impacts on their health, productivity, and eventually on our economy are deep. Going into the future, I would think that India's consumption profile needs to be balanced out a little bit more. The middle and upper middle class must reduce overconsumption, while the bottom half of the population needs access to better nutrition, housing, and the essentials of a decent life. Thank you.
Thank you, all the leaders who contributed to BW Voices for Earth. Now, as we continue our World Environment Day discussions, we now shift our focus from organizational action to a broader national question. Can India build growth without environmental compromise? To moderate this discussion, I would now like to invite Ms. Urvi Srivastava, Assistant Editor at BW Business World. Joining her on the panel are Mr. Kuwar Himmat Singh, Director, Corporate Affairs and ESG, Nestle India; Ms. Madhulika Sharma, Chief Sustainability Officer, ITC; Ms. Vaishali Surawar, Chief Sustainability Officer, Hindalco Industries; and Mr. Ankit Todi, Chief Sustainability Officer, Mahindra Group, who will be joining us shortly in next 10 to 15 minutes. Thank you all for joining us. Over to you, Urvi.
Thank you so much, Priyanshi, for the wonderful introduction. As we all know that India is progressing really fast, and whether it is in the energy sector, whether it is in infrastructure, whether it is in any other field, including startups, one of the key challenges remains how to balance sustainability, environment, along with profits and scale. Today, we are here to dwell deeper into this topic. So, Ms. Surawar, I would like to ask you first, do you think it is realistically possible that we develop as a capitalist economy to some extent, along with preserving the sustainability aspects?
So thank you, Purvi, and thank you, Business World, for inviting me. And I would wish the Environment Day wishes to the entire panel and the audience here. Yes, it is absolutely possible. And I think India's growth story will be judged not by how fast we grow, but by how efficiently we use resources while growing. I was hearing few remarks from the previous video, and I think everyone spoke about the challenges, and I think so it is about efficiency versus inefficient growth. So that's something which we should tackle. So if I have to talk it in more detail, can I?
Yes, please go
Yeah.
ahead.
So I think it is about the risk, as I see, is about water and land stress. The industrial growth and urbanization are already creating local resource conflict, as you can see. Or if I have to talk about biodiversity loss, it is the expansion of mining, infrastructure, or cities in the fragmented ecosystem. Or if I have to talk about the waste and pollution, so consumption-led growth, which is outpacing the waste management systems. And here, someone spoke, and I heard it. India's generates. Someone spoke about the waste generated by Mumbai. And if I have to talk about the waste generated by India, it is 1,60,000 tons of waste which municipal corporation generates per day. So it is the system to handle this and the efficiency built in these systems. If I have to talk about the urban wastewater, almost 70% of the urban wastewater is untreated, and that's where I keep hearing about the latest inauguration of two big sewage treatment plants of 5,000 KLD kind of capacities in Mumbai by Piyush Goyal or someone. So when I keep hearing about this, it gives me the thought process about conflicting priorities or efficiency versus the growth story, the pace. So to me, the risks are real, and we really need to work on this conflict of growth versus sustainability. So as I said, efficiency versus inefficient growth. And if you have to talk about the metals and mining industry and where Hindalco works, so we have a clear diktat and each of our factories, we have 19 factories and 23 mine blocks in India. And each of our factories are zero liquid discharge, and we are working with 27% of our water getting recycled, 18 million meter cube of rainwater harvested and used back in the process or given back to society. So those kind of stringent targets. Each kg of waste is repurposed and reused by some other industry. So today, 11 of our factories are zero waste to landfill certified out of these 19 factories. So that kind of rigor we have inbuilt in our, I would say, strategy.
Right, Ms. Sharma, I have the same question towards you. Do you think that ITC and even other companies are in a position wherein they can balance sustainability and economic growth?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, Vaishali just mentioned, I think, responsible growth is no longer a choice. I think that is an imperative. One, from talking from a national perspective, so, you have, as a country, we have we are very, very vulnerable to the climate impacts of climate change. We are seeing it now. Every season, you hear some really new events which have never occurred before. So once in, 100 years or 50 years, events are much more frequent. So you have a Banda in UP having a touching 50-degree unheard of earlier, right? So those kind of events, and India as a country has got diverse climatic zones, very, very, very high population, and hence the impact of these climate changes is going to be very immense on the country itself. Second, we have an overdependence on fossil fuel based imported, fossil fuel based energy. And hence, that's again, from a long-term perspective, that's a real risk that we carry. So obviously, sustainability or responsible growth, and added to that, actually, we have the highest population and we have a very young demography. So obviously there's a need for rapid industrialization for urbanization, but that's also what I see as an opportunity. That if more than half of the country is yet to be built, then actually it is necessary that we build it in a way that is responsible. And also, we have, demonstrated it for ITC. In the we have, we just did a tracker and saw that in the last 3 years, actually, our revenue has grown by 10%, and our scope 1 plus scope 2 has actually come down. I'm saying CAGR, so it has come down by about 5%, which is actually the signs of decoupling of growth. And when I'm just talking about one organization, I'm sure this can be achieved for other organization as a country as a whole. And that is why you also hear country taking a position on responsible growth, justice, climate justice for everyone, and also but growth, because that growth is imperative, but responsible growth, I think country, organizations, they have all demonstrated that can be achieved. So that is what I just thought as an opening statement I'd like to share.
Mr. Singh, posing the same question to you, do you think that it is really possible to achieve economic scale while remaining environmentally conscious?
Thank you, Urvi. Thank you and greetings to all on the panel. As environment specialists and let us say fraternity, the environment is obviously very special to us. Look, there is absolutely no dichotomy for us when it comes to environment sensitivity and growth. Okay, I represent an organization which is over 160 years old. The reason we believe that we have been able to survive this long and thrive this long is because beyond treating things like environment sensitivity, it is part of, we've always as an organization believed in the social license to operate. That it manifested in the cause of, let us say, sustainability, which is last few decades perhaps, and last 10 years in India perhaps. But we've always felt it's important to get the social license, which in today's day and age manifests in the form of sustainability. If organizations breed that sort of consciousness in your DNA and they embed it as an imperative of business, organizations survive. Look, history is instructive. Any country, any organization, any household which does not take a long-term view, and sustainability being a case in point, it will not survive. To us, taking actions on sustainability in everything that we do, in terms of actions, in terms of the plants we build, in terms of products we make, the packaging, so on and so forth, or the responsible management thereof subsequently, everything should have a sustainability. It's not an expense. It is not a compliance. It is all of this and a lot more. And it's because we believe that we always try to push the levels of, let us say, a social license sensitivity, which, as I said, in today's day, and the topic today manifests in the form of sustainability, is the reason why we've been able to survive. So for us, it's not a matter of compliance. It's a matter of a belief. It has gone beyond that. It's a belief that if we are not socially conscious, if we are not sustainability conscious, we will not survive. So there is always this long-termism versus a short-termism. Ki abhi kar lo, kya farak padta hai? That's not the sort of approach we have. So that's our point.
That's very true. Ultimately, it all boils down to individual accountability, whether it is as a single person or as an entity, as a company. We have Mr. Ankit Todi. He's just joined us. He's the Chief Sustainability Officer of Mahindra Group. Mr. Todi, I hope you can hear us.
Yes, thank you so much and apologies for the delay.
Okay, not an issue. So I was just collecting the opening remarks from our panelists, and I would like to extend the same question to you. Do you think it is possible that we can achieve economic scale while being environmentally conscious?
Absolutely. I think there's no doubt about that. In fact, all and many new sectors of economic growth will come from environment sustainability. And I'll give you some specific examples, both within the group but also at a national level. So, for instance, renewable energy sector is one of the biggest sectors that's driving a lot of global investment into the country. That entire space is being propagated and is moving fast because of that. The same applies for, let's say, the electric vehicle ecosystem that's driving a lot of investments, but at the same time also economic growth, job creation, etc. Now, these are two sectors which are already quite mature. But as you spend more time, you'll realize that we'll have more and more sectors that which are driven by environment economics that will start creating jobs and also investments. I'll give a specific example with respect to the entire EPR ecosystem, the extended producer responsibility. There we are seeing new rules come in for tires, for batteries, for end of life vehicles, for construction and demolition waste. Each of these sectors is creating an entirely new economy. So we will see that both these things will go together. The second point I'll make is internally also we have been tracking growth for what is called the green aligned revenue. So let's say within the auto ecosystem, the revenue from electric vehicles, within the real estate ecosystem, the revenue for green buildings, and so on. So across the green products and services, we are seeing that these revenues are growing at almost 2 to 3 times faster than the average growth of the industry. So clearly the next wave of growth will come from this. It's just that not every sector has been economically aligned yet. I think the moment we have more and more sectors similar to how EVs and renewable energy is aligned, we'll see a lot more of this happening. So no two doubts about this.
Okay. I think we are more or less optimistic about the future of sustainability as well as economics. So that's really good. Usually, historically, we have seen sustainability as a retrospective thing to mend, rather. That's why we have so many global organizations also now working towards the same agenda. Mr. Rawat, I would like to pose the next question to you. I really like your background. It's in solidarity with the event today. So my next question is towards you, ma'am. So when we talk about sustainability and the corporate structure as well as the economics, while we are optimistic, there are always challenges that we encounter. Could you shed light on what those could be and how we can overcome them?
So if you want me to talk about the challenges, I think energy, as we all are facing it, and this is the right time we all see our dependence, and that's where I think the self-sufficiency, alternate resources, that's one area which I see as a challenge, and I am very optimistic because we saw recent agreements on transfer of technology, whether it is Shanti Bill, whether it is green hydrogen. So I see these are the opportunities which we are forcing that it will give the bigger impact as far as Indian growth happens. And as the major hard to abate sectors for them also, whether it is fertilizer or steel or aluminium or chemical, the 9 hard to abate sectors for them also, I think both are really great opportunities, whether it is Shanti Bill or whether it is green hydrogen. And the other thing which I see is circular economy. There's a huge opportunity in recycling end of life metals, whether it is, and especially Hindalco is operating in aluminum and copper both. And here we have put up our first ever printed circuit board recycling plant, just commissioned in the month of April 2026 in Gujarat. And this is a plant where we are trying to put the organized printed circuit board collection and recycling to get especially copper and allied metals. It could be rare earths as well as precious metals. So I think these are the opportunities, and these are some of the challenges of the challenges. If I have to talk about only this printed circuit board, today it is not available in an organized way. The aggregators are there, but they are not doing it in a responsible way, and that's where I would say Hindalco is trying to do the hand-holding partnerships to get the clean PCB scrap in our premises so that we process it and get the metal. Similarly, for aluminium, we have just commissioned our end-of-life scrap collection system as well as melting and using it back. So 50,000 ton of end-of-life aluminium recycling system is commissioned in Odisha, But as of now, we have challenges in getting that quantity in India, and we are trying to import the end-of-life scrap. So putting up those systems, and that's where I think I subscribe to what Ankit said. These EPR obligations are also driving the growth of creating new economy. So that's one part. If I have to talk about the another element, which is sustainable infrastructure and urban system, where I see green buildings, smart water systems, or energy efficient transport, which are very important for India's urbanization wave. The fourth thing which I see is a climate smart agriculture and bioeconomy. So as far as our companies or industries go, the biomass, biochar, they are really the opportunities. And as far as agriculture system goes in India, the micro irrigation, the regenerative farming, now the carbon capture platform, the new CCTS platform will allow the farmers to earn the green credits. So that's where I think there is opportunity to grow, and these are all some of the challenges. The water stress regions, and then the nature-based solutions, which will help the farmers to produce in a, I would say, eco-friendly manner. So I see nature-based solutions like afforestation, mine reclamation, watershed restoration. These are all the opportunities which we have, and India can lead an integrated biodiversity into industrial landscape. And India's, I would say, competitive advantage lies in scaling solutions that are both affordable and sustainable. And this is where the global leadership will emerge. And
Thank
we
you
as
so much.
Hindalco are banking upon it and using it in each of our growth dimensions.
Thank you, Mr. Rawar. You spoke very, very clearly, I mean, in points, and we didn't really miss out on anything. So that's really much appreciated. I would like to extend the same question to Mr. Singh. So Nestle is, as we know, an MNC. And I'm sure that there are different challenges when it comes to the environmental risks, whether it is in India or abroad. So what challenges do you see in this regard?
Okay, if I were to restrict the question perhaps only to India, and I think we have some of the most progressive laws and policies, and it's really not about that. In at least in my mind, it's really about the last mile execution. Okay, that is where perhaps a lot of us find challenges. I think the laws are there, and for whatever reasons, we are not perhaps able to execute. And I talk not as an organization, not just as an individual, overall as a country. You know, our ability to translate those very progressive laws into meaningful end results. That's one. The second, I mean, a challenge or that we see is sometimes we miss the serendipity, or let us say the connecting the dots between three very important elements. And allow me to speak in my language, which is the Samaj, the Bazaar, and the Sarkar. So there are these three elements. If all three can come underlined with, there is this beautiful word called niyat. If the niyat is right on sustainability, the niyat in the consumer to be willing to pay the price and see the merit in sustainability, the niyat in the organization to look at it as not as a cost but as an investment, the niyat in the Sarkar, I think it can beautifully come together, and that's perhaps something we need to cut across the three. The third, and on a slightly more self-introspective mood, I think we need to demystify the subject of sustainability. It should not be a bunch of sustainability folks in the organization who exist because they add to the cost. I'm afraid most of my colleagues that I meet across my friends in various organizations, they lament the fact that sustainability is seen as a cost. And somewhere along the line, as the sustainability fraternity, we have failed to communicate not just the relevance, I mean, that part is understood, or the criticality, but how powerful it can be in terms of even sort of growing an organization, growing a nation, growing a society, and so on and so forth. So there is this challenge of demystifying sustainability but really valorizing it as a lever of strength, not apologetically, not as just a compliance lever. So to me, these are these three things that kind of end up becoming the roadblocks that we'll overcome.
That was a very interesting phrase you used. I've heard of reduce, reuse, and recycle, but not Samaj Sarkar. And what was the third one, please?
Samaj Sarkar. Sorry, I said Samaj Sarkar and Bazaar.
And
The
Bazaar,
part.
yes. Wow. That's, I think I'm going to use that somewhere. Ms. Sharma, my next question is towards you. So yes, while we have discussed some issues that are there when we talk about scaling at sustainability, uh, what do you think that India can become when it comes to becoming a global leader in sustainable growth? Do you think that we have that capability of climate innovation or sustainable growth, say in the next decade? How can India position itself as a leader?
I think India has already positioned or started positioning itself, and it's getting reckoned as one of the leading voices on responsible growth. We are the second largest country with the highest renewable energy capacity after China, and we are actually last year we added much more than any other country in the world. We added 50 plus gigawatt of renewable energy sources in one single year. Now, having said that, I think while there are challenges that both Vaishali and Mr. Kunwar Himmat Singh mentioned, I think very very well articulated in terms of those are the roadblocks. And I would just like, from a Sarkar perspective, actually the right kind of policies and incentives can actually accelerate actually. But where is the opportunity for India to, because, and it is going to solve India's problem, it is contextual to India, and India has to take the lead. So first is energy. I mentioned earlier that we have a huge over dependence, and the current geopolitics has shown how vulnerable it makes your economy. And accelerated movement, while we have established ourselves in terms of our project management capabilities, in terms of even manufacturing capabilities for renewable sources, I think green hydrogen is our next stop. The whole green hydrogen economy that can really decarbonize your hard to abate sectors like steel, cement, other forms of metal, fertilizer, which is such an important aspect, because we are still an agrarian society, and dependence on fossil fuels just kind of makes that whole even the food security position, not only meeting your needs, but the whole food security position can be jeopardized by this just a shortage of supply because of one area getting under a conflict zone. So I think green hydrogen, I would say, should be the topmost where everyone should come together, government, all the organization, technology, scale up the technology. There are pilots which have been done, but how can we very rapidly scale up so that by 2030 there is a commitment of 5 million tons of green hydrogen, but how can we not only achieve 5, but look beyond? I think that is one area that can be looked at. I think the second one being, coming from ITC, having, huge presence in agriculture. I think, again, because India has got such a large agriculture base, and that is coming from the need, I think decarbonization of the agriculture sector, practices that can be adopted, regenerative agriculture practices, and that can be shown as to the rest of the world as a example that how it can be done at a large scale. There are challenges, multiple challenges actually, because the farm holding is very small. It becomes maybe upfront it is uneconomical for the farmers to rapidly adopt these practices, but then how are those right incentives built through policies, through other forms of interventions that can actually make it happen? And then I think so yeah, these two, I think, coming from the sector that I am there, maybe we can look at it from a perspective which actually positions us as a leader on green transition, and also helps in mitigating a lot of the climate risk actually, which poses as a threat to us and makes us as a country very, very vulnerable.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Sharma. I think you've touched upon a very important aspect, which is policy versus ground level execution. That is where the magic lies, because that's the difference between paperwork and reality. So, Mr. Todi, that is my next question towards you, building on what we have already spoken about. So, we have many companies today that have sustainability commitments and net zero targets. So, in your view, where does the biggest execution gap still exist between ambition and on-ground reality?
No, absolutely. I think, when it comes to targets, I think a lot of us have the right things in place, but the main focus should be on execution. And execution can scale only if you are able to build a business case around certain things. So sector by sector, I think it's important to understand what the priorities are for that sector and how do you make a business case. Now, business case is focused on four different elements. The first is that can you find opportunities for new revenue growth? Can you find opportunities to cut cost through efficiency measures, other measures, etc. The third is, especially in the current context, I think how do you use sustainability as a lever to build resilience in your supply chain, in your ecosystem as a whole. And then finally, I think there is some brand consumer awareness depending on the nature of the sector, either in the B2B ecosystem where your B2B customers value your investments in sustainability, or in the B2C ecosystem in terms of the brand image that the consumers think about it. I'll take some very specific examples. When it comes to, let's say, the auto ecosystem, a lot of it is about how do you transition into the electric vehicle ecosystem as an example. If you take the real estate ecosystem, it again becomes about how do you design buildings in a way that are more climate responsive, use less energy, water, solve for these things, both in the commercial setting and in the non-commercial setting. If you go to a finance company, then the conversation changes completely. For a finance company, a lot of the climate conversation is how do you solve for climate risk in your portfolio, and how do you solve or create a business by doing green financing. I think that's the thing, that how do we translate these commitments into very core business first outcomes that support sustainability. I think that's when we'll see that a lot more progress starts happening. The other element I do want to touch upon a little bit is that while a lot of our conversations disproportionately, our conversations and targets focus often on mitigation. Everyone talks about net zero, everyone talks about emission reduction, scope 1, scope 2 emissions, etc. Very often we don't have any targets or any sort of long-term thinking when it comes to adaptation. But especially in the current context, and especially for India in particular, I think across sectors, we really need to try and bring the adaptation conversation to the fore, because you will again see that the kind of risks that we face both as a society and as a company in individual capacities would be on the risk side, especially on things like heat stress, on things like agriculture stress, etc. So that's another area that we really need to bring to the fore and drive action on, both in the short term and mid term.
That is very true. I mean, you've given some very nuanced answer, I would say, because usually we talk about larger targets, but we miss the details. And there's a saying that the devil is in the details. So that's very important. Ms. Suravan, I would like to extend the same question to you. When we talk about what's happening at the ground level in Hindalco Industries, so how would you be addressing this question of bridging the gap between ambition and on-ground reality?
So, as far as Hindalco goes, in February 2021 itself, we have put up a very ambitious sustainability targets on ESG in the public domain. We also formulated our board level insight, so that we have the independent board members. In fact, Hindalco's board is chaired by Mr. Arun Adhikari, who is from HUL and who is from variety of industries. So that's how the board insights at one side, and it is not at all compliance driven. It is going beyond compliances, making each of our factories self-sustainable models. So when I talk about alumina refinery, we have the targets on recycling the water efficiency. Year on year, we reduce the specific water consumption by 5%. We work on innovative approaches, the cost of waste recycling and waste use. So that's how in India's bauxite residue, which is red mud, the Hindalco's 3 refineries, 139% is used by cement. And also other applications are developed like brick, like road. So that is where our waste, which was if you see our peers in India, Nalco, the public sector, they are all storing it. While Hindalco has put the efforts to develop the application with the partners, and now the legacy waste is also getting evacuated. When I say 130, 100% is what is generated, but the 30% which was stored for so many years is now getting used by the cement companies mostly. So that's where I'm saying our focus was making each of our locations self-sustainable. The green belt, 33% is mandated, but we went beyond that. Water, rainwater harvesting and using the rainwater in the process is mandated for all our factories. We have an incentive-driven system for waste utilization, for water efficiency, for water usage. And I'll tell you, we started working with various institutions, including CPET, the government laboratory in Bangalore for plastic. And we have also developed the biodegradable plastic formula for packaging. So at one side, we are meeting the EPR regulation and working on reduce. So we are trying to reduce the plastic content in our packaging. While other side, we have started working and we have got the patent application filed, 4-5 rounds of trials done on the biodegradable plastic. And now the Dahej factory has started using the biodegradable plastic for packaging. The other factories are also on the pathway to do that, because we are building the vendors now based on the formula developed. So that is where Hindalco's, I would say, preparedness on ground to meet the upcoming sustainability challenges is already there. The long-term view is there. I absolutely subscribe to my panel members, co-panel members, that at times it cannot be a mitigation-based strategy. It has to be a long-term adaptation or adaptation-based strategy, or long-term thought process, which will help us in building upon what could be the prospective challenges. And as we have seen, the World Economic Forum risk or the geopolitical risk, it's not something which was, or the COVID risk, which was never there in the top risk, but it occurred. So today I think history may not help us to build upon the future risk, and hence we have to have a futuristic strategic thought process to make our factories self-sustainable. And the other dimension about green revenue, or we can say sustainable revenue, sustainable products, is another area where we have started working. And I mentioned in my previous discussion also about the recycling bit in aluminum and copper. Both sides we have started our strategic investment, and both the investments are just commissioned. Just to share with you, Novelis, which is a 100% subsidiary of Hindalco, has got 26 operations all over the world, and they are the world's largest end-of-life aluminum recycler, with 64% of their input raw material coming from end-of-life recycling. So that's how Hindalco is driving the, I think, future.
I think aluminium has become a bit of an Achilles heel for people, especially since the Diet Coke subscription was was cut short after the situation in the West Asia war. Mr. Singh, I would like to bring you into the conversation now and ask you a little bit more about what India is getting wrong when it comes to achieving 100% sustainability, or if not 100%, then being on the sustainable path. We haven't really spoken about water and waste management as such. So would you like to shed some light on that? Is there any uncomfortable truth that we are yet to accept?
So look, I don't think, how do I say? I don't think it's not about the laws. It's not about the lack of understanding. We are in a country which is extremely fortunately placed. How do I say? The know-how is there. Yes, we may be an emerging economy and an emerging nation. But in terms of technological know-how, in terms of understanding, in terms of finding solutions, in terms of creativity, even in the form of sustainability, it's all there. Okay. Having said that, what we lack is some form of scale, some sort of being able to galvanize sustainability as a movement into our consciousness as an individual, as an organization, as a nation. I think we're struggling a bit there, but it's not about the laws and so on and so forth. Our ability to put it into our operating system and truly believe that it is a lever of growth, it's a lever of survival. there are some islands of excellence, and I think Ankit Toti, who's there on the panel, his industry is a great example, and he made a very eloquent gave a very eloquent thing about the auto industry. It is so right. The auto industry has been able to form a business case for sustainability. The whole EV thing or the renewable energy. These are sectors which have really, really succeeded in finding a business case for sustainability. It must have been a journey. I'm sure they would have faced a lot of it. If we can similarly get inspired by what they did in auto industry or in the energy sector and sort of take it, it's happening in our food in our food side. And as Madhulika was talking about ITC, being a very agriculture dependent, just as Nestle is as a food company, we are seeing firsthand the impact of ignoring sustainability only to our peril. Okay, it's there. It's staring us, whether it's the floods or it's how we have sort of abused our natural resources. It all is coming back to bite us. The day, as a nation, we are able to find business cases for respecting the communities, the planet, and everything that is in there, beyond just our narrow purposes, is the day when it'll all come back. So to me, I remain extremely positive in terms of having the required wherewithal, having the right examples, having the right inspiration in India. But I think it's just about connecting the dots and sort of doing the equivalent of what happened in the auto industry across all industries, and that's the day when you'll see the magic will happen. Yes, we have a problem. We have 1.5 billion people, and there's a lot of issues, and unfortunately, unlike the West, where sustainability is it's not just a conversational topic. It manifests in the people in governance. There are green parties, in the West, in the politics of West, there are green parties. We have electoral discussions. When did you last hear anybody talking about sustainability? When did you last hear about anybody talking about measures? Not really. There are other issues, peripheral issues we talk about, side issues. But these are issues which impact your and my life. Unfortunately, they've not been mainstreamed as much as they ought to have been. And perhaps the answer is we didn't make good business cases for that. And that's the only challenge I see here. Otherwise, I think we have the wherewithal.
Right. I think that question was a little, I took you aback by that question, I think a little, in the sense that it wasn't shared earlier before the panel. So, Mr. Todi, I would like to ask you the next question. Mr. Singh, of course, has said that you have presented a very nice case study in the form of your organization as to what we can learn in terms of getting sustainability right. But in India, we still face a major number of roadblocks when it comes to sustainable growth. So what would you pinpoint is the real issue? Is it policy, execution? Is it even consumer behavior, or is it investment industry mindset? What's your take?
So I generally believe that there are three enablers that help make or scale these things. The first is innovation. The moment you have some sort of a technology that allows for the commercial case to be built, you will suddenly see that it starts scaling. Instead of the EV and the renewable example, I'll talk about maybe battery system. So battery cost has been going down rapidly in the country, actually around the world over the last few years. And we are now crossing the tipping point where you will see that the storage infrastructure will become mainstream. It's already, regulations are coming in place in certain states, but it'll get scaled across new areas. Similarly, if I were to talk about the water ecosystem, there have been multiple innovations in the STP, ATP technology, which is now allowing me to scale. I think the example that Vaishali was talking about, that when you have solutions to manage hazardous waste of different kind, you will see that these things scale. So the first enabler is innovation. How do we continue to support R&D and also scale whatever is currently available? The second thing that I would say is obviously policy and the government support is very, very critical. So across sectors, we have seen wherever the government has come and supported something that starts scaling up. So currently we are in a phase where we are trying to, let's say, support the hydrogen economy as an example. We are trying to support the low emission steel ecosystem, low emission aluminum ecosystem, at the same time trying to enable many of these recycling ecosystems through EPR. So there, the initial few years, it's the policy support and the incentives from the government side is what is helping build the industry. But none of these industries will need permanent support. It's only a matter of 3 to 5 years where they need to be handholded. Then the economics will start working out on its own. So that's the second enabler. The third enabler, which is honestly the biggest thing which is missing right now, is the people side of things. So when it comes to, I think the level of seriousness and understanding that this topic deserves is currently, unfortunately, missing largely, in the rooms that this matters. So while the people on this panel and the likely the audience are what I would call the converted, but you really need a lot of people in the boardrooms at more senior levels to really get into the nitty-gritties of the subject. So I think that's the third very critical element, that how do you make sure that there is more deeper understanding with the people who are the real decision makers. So be it the investor ecosystem, be it the people on the boards, be it non-sustainability senior executives around companies. I think that's the third cultural change, which is honestly the hardest. The first two, I still feel there is sufficient and more progress happening. The third is what is the most challenging part, and I would in fact credit media organizations that the more these kind of conversations you are able to do, where you bring different stakeholders and make it a mainstream topic. We often are reactive for things which happen in the short term, but climate and sustainable economics is a long-term topic. So the more we are able to mainstream this into the conversation, the more actions we'll start seeing happen on this.
Right, Mr. Todi, you've given a very cohesive answer, 360-degree view. Ms. Sharma, I would like to build on what Mr. Todi has said. It is a slightly similar question. So if you had the power to fix just one of these issues tomorrow, which I mentioned earlier, whether it is policy, investment, execution, consumer behavior, or industry mindset, what would be the one thing that you would want to amend and why?
I think while Ankit, building on what Ankit said, I think policies are there, but yes, needs to be strengthened, etc. I think the industry mindset is also there, at least the large industries. I'm not taking into account the large MSME sector, which is there, which needs really a lot of incentives and handholding and capability building to actually make the next move. But one coming from an FMCG sector, I think one thing that I'll pick is the consumer behavior. All of us are consumers, and I think taking while example, we give examples of RE, or we give examples of the EVs which are there. But see, those are all that has happened because somebody made a shift to buy an electric vehicle because there was a perceived cost benefit in a longer term. And also the other, if things you associate, okay, if you're driving an EV, people associate you with a certain mindset which could be in fashion. Similarly, the adoption of sustainable fashion has been quite rapid, right? Again, because people associate it with their personal values. So you will pay maybe more because if it is coming from a handloom and it is traceable, etc. The same is not on things that we consume on everyday basis. So you talked about waste. Waste is a real challenge in the country, and unless and until all of us contribute to it, whatever amount of policies are there, India has one of the most stringent EPR policies on plastics, most stringent, right? So stringent that actually, as organizations, we'll fail to meet them because there is no capacity available for recycling. And why is it not there? Because the feed is not there. The feed is not there because source segregation is not happening, right? There's no technology, rocket science technology here. It all boils down to individual behaviors, right? But I'm just taking an example that if Ashirwad atta, which is coming from a traceable source and in a totally sustainable package which is made of, say, alternatives to plastic, uh, a normal Ashirwad atta will cost you about 65 rupees. Now this is going to cost you 80 rupees, right? Now, as a consumer, even most evolved consumer, you make those, choices when you are buying it and you say, I have eaten it. Nobody else knows that, I have eaten a very sustainable Ashirwad atta roti. Who knows about it, right? And why should I make that choice? And eventually that packet is going to go into my dustbin and eventually go to the landfill. So why do I make that choice? I mean, how does it matter to me to make a 15 rupees per kg? And if I'm consuming, maybe just a four person kind, they may be consuming some 20 kgs in a month. So why am I going to, spend that extra? I think that perceived benefit to them in a larger ecological or larger sustainability thing is just not done. And I think, again, it will not be only done by organizations like us or Nestle, but it needs real consumer shift, consumer education, and incentives for us as individuals to make that behavior shift. I think there is not enough push on that direction to make that consumer behavior shift. I'm just taking example of a food product, but it is there with other, whether it's a personal care product or anything, which is actually generating a lot of waste. So I just thought I'll pick up on consumer, behavior that can really, really make this our our country a much more waste-free, much more sustainable, kind of a country.
That is so true that I mean, ultimately sustainability is an individual decision, especially we as consumers. I think a lot of times we don't realize how much plastic we are using or how much half-eaten things or half glasses of water we throw away for that matter, or we leave the electricity on, so on and so forth. So yes, you are completely right about the consumer conscience being tracked right now. So, Mr. Ravar, I would like to ask you this question. How do you think companies can contribute when it comes to consumer education or customer education and driving home the point of sustainability to their customers?
So, while you asked this question, what just occurred to me quickly was, since my Madhulika spoke about consumer behavior, I would talk about infrastructural gaps. And I spoke that in this country, almost 160,000 ton of municipal solid waste per day gets generated, or 70% of the urban sewage, water sewage is not treated. I keep hearing the same story in Mumbai also. So, as a company, as an industry, we have started projects on the solid waste management close to our factory premises, say in Bharuch, in Sambalpur, in Raigada, in Odisha. So in the places which are, or Tikri, which are remotest places where our factories are there. And here we are doing the awareness campaigns, Swachhata Doot. So these are the tripartite agreements where the capex is by Hindalco, municipal corporation is one partner where they are giving us the land, and there is a third partner who is running this solid waste management facility. And Hindalco is giving capex, Hindalco is giving funds for, I would say, this Swachhata Doot creation, awareness, door to door campaigns. So that's how, as a responsible corporate, we can partner with the municipal corporations in infrastructure building or awareness creation. So this is an example on the waste. And I think the similar story we are trying to do with CSR on the water. So large scale rainwater harvesting structures, almost 221 structures we have created, and it gives 18 million metric cube of water to the farmers, almost 5,000 plus hectares of land getting irrigated. So that's where I think the partnership, awareness about the natural resources, I am speaking about the waste and the water only, can these corporates can influence, can create awareness, and can build larger communities to be to develop the nature friendly growth, efficient resource management, as well as efficient treatment of waste or wastewater.
Right. I think we are in the last few minutes of our conversation. So I would just like to pose one quick question to all our panelists. In fact, Mr. Rao, we'll start with you. What is the one challenge most urgently we must prioritize before 2030 to build a more climate resilient and sustainable future?
So I think infrastructure gap.
Okay. That is true. I mean, you just just addressed that in your last answer. So I think that clarification is
And I would say put it in the design principle rather than doing a post growth correction.
right. Ms. Sharma, your inputs on the same, please.
So I would again say that integrate the renewable energy adoption into the design principles of any, any infrastructure or anything that is getting built, whether it's by government, organizations, or even, individuals. If you're making a house, then it has to be embedded, because that's a very near-term risk that is there, and it actually mitigates a lot of GHG emission related climate, hazards that could be there for us. So if one quick answer, so this will be my pick.
Okay. Mr. Singh, your inputs, please.
So I would say there should be just enhanced sustainability conversations, just enhanced sustainability valorizations. As Madhulika said, we can talk as much as we want. If consumers and stakeholders and policy framers and implementers and regulators, if they don't see value, ultimately, at the end, most important being the consumers, it remains just conversations. So I think the more we talk about it, the more we demystify it, the more we sort of fearmonger is the wrong word, but really talk about the consequences of ignoring sustainability to our peril. I think it works to the betterment for everyone.
Lovely. Mr. Todi, your thoughts, please.
Yeah, so I would probably, build on what Madhulika said, that accelerate the energy transition at a country level, both on renewable energy, but also on energy efficiency and what I call electrification. So that will not just help the environment, but it will also help with the country's energy security. It will help create jobs, it will give you better economic outcomes. So I think that is definitely something that we need to do a lot more of in the near term. And obviously there are so many other things. So I would generally not ignore other things, but this would be my pick.
Okay, lovely. With that, we come to the end of our panel discussion, and I would like to thank everybody who took the time out to join us. I know it's a Friday, and week end is not the most conducive time for heavy discussions, but you still took the initiative to come here, and we really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, that brings us to the end of BW Environment Day. And across our two panels, it is very clear we can conclude one thing, that the question is no longer whether India should grow, but how it chooses to grow. For a country of India's scale and ambition, sustainability cannot remain a parallel conversation to development. It has to become central to it. What also emerged from today's discussion is there are no easy answers, just like everything else, isn't it? The transition towards sustainable growth will require trade-offs, stronger execution, policy support from the government, business innovation, and perhaps most importantly, collective responsibility across industries, government, and consumers. India stands at a defining moment. The choices we make today, whether it is around energy, infrastructure, consumption, manufacturing, or any other resource use, it will shape not only our economic future, but also the quality of life for generations to come. There's a common saying we must have read probably in our school days, that we do not inherit the world from our forefathers, we borrow it from our children. So that is basically a very loaded and a very responsibility-driven statement, which requires us to make the correct choices today. On that note, thank you all to our distinguished panelists, as well as guests and our viewers who are joining us virtually, for joining us and sharing your thoughts. And thank you to our audience also for being part of this important conversation. Happy World Environment Day.